Today we're honoring Kris Bailey of the show. I'm very excited about this. This is a very important topic. I've talked about this a few times on the show, but having a professional on this to actually talk about it in detail, it's super valuable to have. So, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm very curious myself. Like, what is the spark that got you interested in this, and how did it help you, and how are you on the path now of helping people with it?
Yeah, good question. I started out certainly not wanting to do cold therapy. It was not something I was like intrigued by and seeking out. It really came from a place of desperation for me. I have two daughters. They're now a teen and a tween. And when my older one was young, she had a lot of mental health struggles. And so I stood beside her and really helped her along her journey and tried to advocate for her because she was too young. And alongside her, I really recognized my own struggles, my lack of ability to manage stress and overworking and just really being in a constant state of fight or flight. And so as I looked to alternative options for her, I found them for myself too. And I found that I loved meditation, I loved yoga and breath work and all of these things that would help regulate my nervous system. But the reality was that those took a ton of time. And so I had this great toolbox of things I could do now, but I couldn't actually get to any of them. And so honestly, once a friend recommended that I try cold plunging, she was like, I really think that you'll like it. Just give it a try. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. It sounds terrible. No, thank you. And so I refused multiple times. And then I honestly think that one day I was just like, what do I possibly have to lose? Like, I feel defeated by not being able to do the things I want to do. So, okay, I'll just give it a try. I didn't tell anyone, and I bought a horse trough from Ace Hardware and was like, okay, I'm going to set up my own little DIY setup because I want literally no expectations. If I want to do this one time and I'll never do it again, then that's what it is. But the reality was I tried it one time and had never felt better. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And so then that really started me on just exploring it for myself and in my family. And then as I would sit in this sad little horse trough, I would dream up how could it be different. And there's so many women like me that are burnout and overwhelmed and struggling, and cold water could help, but it's not appealing. And so how could I bridge that gap and help more people just be open to exploring it and just trying it? And so in that little horse trough, I dreamed up Chill Pod, and all of 2 years later, here we are with our first products on the market. And it's been a really exciting journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you talked about like how the other tools like meditation, journaling, of course, they take a lot of time. So it's really cool to have that tool of cold therapy to actually
Yeah.
get a lot of those same benefits and become more resilient because it doesn't take that time. A lot of people think it does, but
Yeah. Yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, so I'm great to hear that. And I'm curious, what are the benefits of this? Like, what are some scientific things? Like, what do you see in the data, and how to actually see benefits from this?
So there's, of course, like the two sides of it. There's the physical benefits and then there's the mental benefits. And I always love to help people understand more of the mental benefits from it because, like you were saying, from the resilience factor, like the mental pieces that you can gain as far as clarity and focus and just like flushing out all the stress from your system, you would be astounded by how much different you can feel and how much differently you show up in the day when you're able to not have those burdens that you're carrying. And so from a scientific perspective, what happens is basically your nervous system gets a little reboot. So you go in the cold water and it puts your body in fight or flight, but just for a really short amount of time. And that's sort of the secret of the practice, is because you're not in it for a long time. So your body isn't put into too much stress, but it's put into just enough that it knows how to get back out of it. And that how to get back out of it is really just your body warming back up. It's coming back, coming back from being that cold and shocked. And that's where the resilience factor comes in. So really what you're doing is just resetting your nervous system every time you go in the water so that you're not carrying all of that baggage that you have it's been flushed out, and you're kind of like renewed and ready to go.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there's of course like the brown fat activation, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like a lot of people will turn to it for weight loss. It can definitely help. I did learn the other day that we have the most brown fat on our backs. So yeah, that gets activated as the water is literally just surrounding you.
Yeah, and it's brown fat. It's brown because it's so dense in mitochondria. It's really beneficial for burning fat. Like it's type of fat that actually keeps you thin in a sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and that
Exactly.
nervous system aspect, it's so important because it tones the vagus nerve. Is that right?
Yeah, which is the biggest nerve that runs through your body. And so, yeah, when you're in there, it does. It activates it so that your body can just be ready for what's coming next. And yeah, so your nerve support, it really, from a hormones perspective too, I mean, the two big ones that people always kind of talk about, but I think are still really important, are your dopamine levels and your cortisol levels. So your dopamine obviously is what makes you feel happy and even energized, and that can go up to 250% when you cold plunge. And the cool thing with that I have found is it's almost like you establish a new baseline for what your dopamine is. So the more that you make this a practice and it's just a part of your life, what maybe your dopamine level is down here before. Now you're up here, and that's just a consistent place that you're sort of staying. And then it's not like going on TikTok and your dopamine goes up and then it falls right back down. It trickles down throughout the day. So you've got that spike, but then you've got a slow release of it throughout the day. So you feel good for a really long time. And then from a cortisol perspective, that's your stress. So it lowers that. So when you go in the cold water, your cortisol levels drop, and truly that stress that your body is holding on to flushes out.
Absolutely, because we're kind of training our nervous system in a sense, like you said, just to be ready for things. Because
Yeah.
we get that feeling of cold. It's like the mammalian dive reflex, right? Where you first get in that cold, it's like that shock, but then it kind of dissipates within a few seconds, honestly.
It
And
does.
if we get hit with about a stretch during the day, our body kind of recognizes that, and it's, oh, I know how to deal with this, and we kind of come accustomed to that, and we train for it. So it's super valuable in that aspect.
It really is. And I don't think people talk about that enough, how it can feel like it's such an isolated practice. Like you're doing one thing for this one particular reason and piece of your health. But the reality is it truly is training you to show up differently in all areas of your life. You're putting yourself into an uncomfortable situation. You're getting yourself out of it, mind and body. And so that carries on into your work, into your relationships. All of those things are really impacted by that one single practice that you're doing.
Definitely, because we can talk about other things like exercise, sunlight, fasting, all these things. And cold therapy is another one of those things, and it's super valuable. They all have their different attributes, but for
Yeah.
me and people that I come in contact with this who actually do this for a long period of time, they definitely um, report being not just healthier, but more resilient overall.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I actually have a friend one day who she was like, I wonder if you feel like you can do these like very big and bold, brave things that you do because you cold plunge in the morning and like that's how you start your day. And I was like, I've literally never thought of it that way, but I think you're right. Like because I challenge myself in that way kind of right out the gate, it does influence how you show up in all other areas. So, I always like to just kind of share that as a thought, because sometimes there's so much resistance to not wanting to try the cold that maybe if we think about it in a different way and all the ways that it could play out in your life, it might make it more appealing. You might want to give it a go.
Absolutely, and it's kind of like, to use exercise as an analogy, uh, it becomes easier in a sense over time. Like maybe hard for the first few weeks, maybe you do like
Yeah.
30 seconds, maybe not as cold,
Yep.
and then you just train upwards because like kind of like what you're talking about in a sense, we kind of like have the apprehension, but we don't have to start off with like this huge practice. Just get
No.
started and just keep that thing rolling.
Exactly. And I think that's just some like an easy way to break it down too, and to think about it in time and temperature. So really like if we look at it less of like, okay, this is exactly how I see other people doing it. This is how I need to do the practice. And we just think about it in those two buckets, if you will. You've got time and you've got temperature, and you can play with both. And I would always recommend start at a high temperature and then work down and, high temperature, maybe a little longer time, 30 seconds, something like that. And then see how your body does. And if you don't feel anything, then you can do more. And if you can approach it with more of like a sense of playfulness and curiosity, I think you're usually surprised by what your body can actually do.
Definitely. How would you recommend people approach the cold? Because they might just want to like start breathing super heavy. They may kind of like tighten up. Like,
Yeah.
what do you recommend for that?
So I always recommend, however you can, like make it a ritual for yourself. Like, what are the things that you enjoy, and how can you bring in more senses than just the feeling of the water? So, do you have a song that you really like, or do you have mantras that you really enjoy listening to? Find something auditory that you can focus your attention on. And then when you're getting into the water, breathing will always help. So even if you just can take some slow breaths in and especially slow breaths out, like you said in the beginning, like your body you might surprise yourself by how quickly you can regulate and actually sit in the water and not be as fazed by it. And then, maybe you like looking with your eyes open, or maybe this is a moment to kind of come inward. That's always how it is for me. I liken it a lot to meditation because that feeling of stillness and just kind of like blocking all the other parts of the world out and coming back to myself, I think is what I love so much about it. And, we can think a lot about the outcomes that we want, but at the end of the day, having that moment with yourself is really powerful too.
Definitely. I mean, because it really is helpful for kind of blocking out all the noise in a sense, because you kind of have to be in the present moment.
100%.
And
Yes.
it's a great training tool for that, just being in the moment in a sense.
Yeah. And it's not for a long time, So maybe it is 30 seconds, maybe it's a minute, but when else in your day do you shut everything else off? And the cold really makes you come into the present moment and be there. If it's really cold, it's pretty hard to be like in your mind thinking about a ton of other things. You're pretty much in that moment, focusing on your breath and maybe what else you're hearing around you.
Yeah, like what are we talking on for a typical time frame? Does it depend, or like just to get the benefits, or maybe you want to?
Yeah.
Does it vary?
I really think it varies person to person. And you kind of have to do your own little science project to figure out what works for you. To give some parameters around it, I guess. So cold therapy is anything from 40 to 60 degree water. So, you've got a pretty wide range in there. And then I always say starting at like probably upper 50s, closer to that 60 degree range for 30 seconds is a great goal. And I think most people would be pretty surprised at what they can do at that. It sounds terrible, but that's basically what I did in my trough the first time, because the hose water was about that. And I stayed in for 7.5 minutes, and I definitely hate cold water. So, to give that kind of context. But I think more than anything, I just think going back again to what your body needs, whether that's in the day or as the practice kind of evolves with you, is letting go of like it needs to be a certain temperature or a certain time, and just really reflecting on, are you getting those benefits that you're looking for from it? So I think starting at like 30 seconds and then just building from there, and knowing that longer isn't always better. So in the case of cold water, there's a fine line between putting your body in fight or flight for a really good amount of time where you're getting those benefits, and then overstressing your body. So I'm nerdy. I like my biometrics and all of that. So I can see for myself if I go in too long sometimes, or like maybe I didn't sleep as well the night before, I plunge and it's just too hard on my body, and I'll see that the next day. So, kind of just pay attention whether you do, your own metrics, or if you just go by feeling. Either one, listening to that and letting that guide is really the most important thing to do.
Yeah, it's very important, because we tend to like sometimes think of these long bouts of cold therapy like these 20-minute ice baths, and it's not necessary. I mean, it has its place, I guess, but essentially, the definition of a hormetic stressor is uh, putting your body through the short-term stress and being able to recover from that to be more resilient. So, like you said, we don't want to overdo it, but we want to
Exactly.
give that right amount to really become a more resilient and better version of ourselves.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. So, perhaps I should have asked this first, but do you know of the like the history and how this was used like ancestrally in the past?
I don't know specific case studies to be totally transparent, but I do know, obviously, at kind of a root level, it has so many ancient roots in it. Like water is such a spiritual space, and, obviously, bodies of natural water were always accessible to people. So, I think just a foundational idea. So many people like to say that it's a fad, it's something that's, so modern, and it's been modernized, yes, but it's such an ancient practice, and I think that's what I really appreciate about it is I just imagine hundreds of years ago people were doing the same thing and wouldn't imagine what it would look like now.
It is, yeah. I actually looked into it a little bit,
Oh,
and
nice.
this was actually used by like a lot of ancient warrior tribes. Like the Spartans used this in training. They
Yeah.
have ancient monks used it as a field of enlightenment.
Yeah.
Socialization was a big aspect of it, like being able to socialize. So it's
Hmm.
kind of interesting. There's a lot of purposes, and it's cool. It's been recognized a lot ancestrally, and this is not like a new fad, like you're saying. So.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that about the monks, though. That's very interesting.
Yeah, like, because, I mean, it makes sense, though, because that's what we're talking about in terms of the benefits.
100%.
And utilizing that as as adjunct to their meditation, of course, that would make
Yeah.
sense there'd probably be a synergy there. So,
Yep. Yep. No, and I know like when you likened it to the Spartans and things like that, obviously like Navy SEALs and like very elite level training involves it too. And I think what I kind of hope to set out to do is to take that narrative, and that's great, but like make it an everyday occurrence, right? Like I don't look like a Navy SEAL. Like you can look like me and still be a person who does this on a normal basis. And so hopefully that kind of like widens that ability to see yourself in the practice. And I almost think the monks actually really like give that a nice place.
yeah, that's a good point, because, like, it is using, like, modern day training, like the SEALs and
Yeah.
all that. But this is accessible to everyone. Like, you don't have to, I mean, they do things extreme because they're warriors and they do different things, but the average person, they can get benefits from this very easily. It's not like
Yeah.
this uh, super grueling thing that it has to be. It can be actually over time you can actually begin to enjoy it,
Yeah.
and you look
Agreed.
forward to it in a sense. And they may seem crazy, but
I
it's
know
great.
it, but you look forward to how you feel after, right? Like I don't think most people look forward to the during, but the way that you feel after is totally worth it. So when you reframe it that way, and it made me think of something else because we likened it to exercise earlier, and I also think it's so powerful to imagine how quickly that benefit happens. Because when you think about it in like exercise terms or clean eating and things like that, like those things take time for your body to show the rewards of that or for you to feel the rewards of that. And with cold plunging, you get out and you definitely feel different than you did 3 minutes ago when you got in. And so I think that's also something to make it maybe a little more enticing is like you don't have to do this for 6 weeks to know how you'll feel. It's just here you go.
Absolutely. So there's different ways of doing this, of course. There's different modalities. There's cold showers, there's cold plunges, and you can just go into natural bodies of water. Do you want to talk about those things?
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, cold showers I feel like are accessible to all, right? Like we've all got some access to be able to do that. Our water might not be as cold sometimes a year than others, but it's a great way to just give it a try. So the practice there would be take your normal shower and then end on cold. Full transparency, if you detest that, I do too. So, if you hate it, there's other things to play with. I know people will play around with like a bowl of water with ice in it, and you can either submerge your hands or your face. You can do either one, and you get similar benefits. Your hands actually have tons and tons of nerve endings, so that can actually be very challenging. So, a way to just be able to try it in your own home. And like you said, bodies of water are great too, whether, especially because when you're in those, typically the water is going to be moving around a little bit. You're not going to get those thermal warm patches around you. The water is going to be constantly moving and keeping your body in that cold state, which is great.
Absolutely. You want to talk about the cold plunges, and because the showers are great, but the accessibility is a huge up for that. But at the same time, you're not getting that full immersion that you get from the plunges.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's a great space to start and, just give it a go. No different than my horse trough. But the reality is your water's not going to be super cold, and it's certainly not going to be frigid, and you're only getting part of your body. So like maybe you're getting your back, but not your front. So that submersion factor of actually getting your whole body in is really powerful, especially if you can get up to your neck, because again, to the vagus nerve, that's kind of your gateway there. And so that's why we created Chill Pod, was really to kind of modernize what the cold plunge would look like. So what the modern version of the ancient practice looks like is really having it temperature set to exactly what you want, and then having the water constantly be cleaned for you so that you don't have to always dump the water. You can have it there. Multiple people can use it. You can have trust in knowing that it's going to be clean and ready for you at any time. One thing that I found with my horse trough was it is shocking the amount of time and energy it takes to really cool off water. So once you kind of get to doing it more often and you're like, oh, 55 isn't really enough for me, I like it to be colder. Well, your body also warms up that water really fast. So I would take my kids' storage bins and I would make these massive storage bins of ice because they melted and made the water as cold as possible. But it was such an effort. And that sounds crazy, but anybody who's done it knows that it takes a lot to cool off water and make it what you want it to be. And you have to do it constantly. And your water gets dirty really fast. So really what we set out to do was to make it so that it was just done for you. You could have your pod there. Mine is in my backyard. So I get up in the morning, go from pajamas to a swimsuit, go out there and get my plunge in, and then go about my day.
Awesome. How is the water clean exactly? Because I can definitely see how a cold plunge that doesn't do that, it's kind of I don't know, it can be kind of inconvenient, kind of change the water all the time and regulate that.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an important element of it. It's done through two different aspects. There's a filter in it, so the filter is grabbing actual debris. You can see the trees behind me. We've got trees all over the place, so they drop stuff all the time. So there's always stuff in our water. And so all of that debris is getting filtered out and put into that container. And then the other piece is the ozone filtering. So that is cleaning out bacteria. People don't realize it, but cold water is actually like a breeding ground for all kinds of stuff that you don't want in your water. So we think of hot water as kind of being that breeding ground, but the reality is cold, it lays dormant and it's still there. So the ozone filtration just helps to wipe all of that out.
That makes sense, because we hear a lot about chlorine, right? But that's not ideal. Is that right? Because ozone, it's super innovative, and it's not going to harm us in the water.
Especially when you consider you're putting your whole entire body in there. You have all your skin exposed to this. You don't want chemicals on that. You want it to be as natural as possible. The only thing that we recommend putting in the water is hydrogen peroxide, because it's totally safe on your skin, but it does help kill off that bacteria as well. So you can do that, but otherwise it's all chemical free. I would want it that way. So
that makes sense. I mean, personally speaking, I've just done the shower so far.
Yeah.
And I've gotten so much benefit out of that.
Nice.
I just remember when I started that a few years ago, I just became so much more mentally and emotionally resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were certain things I was dealing with, but it's almost like a lot of problems kind of disappear.
Yeah.
It's you don't have to put so much effort into it because you were able to hold this wattage.
Yep.
So it's that's probably the number one thing that I noticed, is just being very resilient.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah. I don't know if you get the same feeling in the shower. The thing that I always liken it to when I get in the plunge is that it's almost like a lightning bolt goes from my feet to my head, and it just feels like it like charges through and just clears everything out. It's really wild. And there isn't another practice where I feel like that, where I literally feel like I can, my whole body is just like a little reboot.
Definitely. I mean, because when we talk about like the cold therapy and wellness overall, it's not just about like one thing. Like we talk about like in big pharma or whatever, we kind of like target things. But when we have like this whole thing, it's really working on all aspects of ourselves, and it kind of whatever we need in the moment. It's almost like an adaptation. Like if we in our lives, like if we're dealing with certain circumstances or certain problems, like it helps us with that, and
Yeah,
whatever that person needs, it's gonna be different for each person.
agreed.
And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I totally agree. That is a really good point. Is I think if you're somebody who leans more towards needing the anti-inflammation or the pain reduction or things like that, your body's naturally going to attune itself to receiving those benefits. Or if you're somebody who needs more of the clarity and focus and resilience, your body's going to recognize that and pick that up. And then obviously they play in conjunction to each other, but I think you can kind of lean one a little more heavily one side or the other.
definitely. So we talked a little bit about like uh, the benefits and modalities. Is there a way that people do this that is perhaps harming them in a sense? Is there a way that it could hurt them, or is there anyone who shouldn't do this?
No, it's a good question. So, I mean, with any practice, if you have concerns with cold plunging, especially, it's if you have some concerns about your heart and the health of your heart. So, if you're worried about that, for sure, consult your doctor and ask them if they, give you the green light for it or have some parameters around it. The other thing that I hear often, more so from women, actually, for no apparent reason, but is circulation issues. So if people have like rainouts and things like that, where especially hands and feet have a difficult time getting enough circulation as it is, so feel very cold on a normal basis, they can have concerns over that. So for the circulation issues, what I've seen people do is put like neoprene socks either over their hands or their feet, and that just allows you to have the cold hit you, but not really like in the same intensity factor. It protects you a little bit and gives you that barrier. And then from the heart perspective, I mean, for sure, just ask your doctor and make sure that that is aligned for you. But otherwise, I mean, it's really one of those practices that it's kind of like meditation. It doesn't have bad side effects. Like if you, maybe worst case, you don't feel anything, or you stay in longer than your body needed at that point in time, and it takes a really long time to warm up. I've definitely done that for myself, where my feet might stay numb for a really long time, and I have to be like, okay, that day we did that too much, and we'll dial back, or I'll listen to myself better in the moment. And so those are just the things to look out for.
Got it. So the shivering thing, is that something that we should avoid, is that a good thing? Like, what should we look out for that?
Yeah, it's actually a good thing. So the shiver is actually what people, it's like your body saying yes, thank you. So when you do that, so I think there's a variety of ways that people can access that feeling. So some people will start shivering in the water. If you're really seasoned at being able to calm your nervous system, you might not have that. So for me, I don't tend to have that in the water because I can calm my breathing, I can calm my nervous system, and I don't tend to have that in the water itself. But I know it's working, and I will have that afterwards. So like a half hour, 45 minutes later, I will literally just start shivering for like 15 minutes. And I can't stop. It just happens, and then we go forward. So the shiver is actually a good sign that your body is recognizing that it's put into this fight or flight, and that it's, again, coming back out of it.
Got it. That makes sense. So when people take on this practice, um, like when do you expect them to see benefits? Is it going to be immediately, or is it going to be after a couple of weeks, or is it going to, of course, vary based on the benefit?
Yeah, I think to some degree it's definitely going to vary per person, but I think you can definitely expect what I hear from most people that I talk to is you're going to feel that dopamine hit immediately. That's like the quick one that comes right into play. And so that you can definitely look for, like that boost of you get out and you're super energized, you feel happy and excited, and all of those like really feel good hormones are coursing through your body. So literally you get out of the water and most people will feel that, which is something to look forward to. And then I think it's kind of your own adventure after that. Then it's kind of just noticing what feels different. Do you feel like, again, you have less inflammation in your body, or do you feel like, oh wow, like I'm very focused on what I'm doing for 2 hours after I plunge, things like that. So for the most part, the research shows that plunging in the morning has a lot of benefits. It obviously supercharges you for the day. You're able to reinforce your circadian rhythm and just really give yourself that energy and focus boost that most people want. So doing that in the morning is great. I have also heard a handful of people that love doing it at night. They swear by jumping in the plunge and then going straight to bed, and they've released all the stress from the day and they're ready for a good night's rest. So again, it goes to the playfulness of just figuring out what works for you.
That makes sense because we can, a lot of times we do things in a way that we think we should do them.
Yeah.
We kind of play by this set of rules in a sense, and we don't actually fit it into our own lives.
Yes.
Which is why we never do it in the long term. So it's very important, like you said, to adapt it to yourself and your own routine.
Yep. No, I completely agree. It really is an individual practice, no different than like figuring out what weights are right for you to lift, or, when should you go to bed. It's just another thing that you figure out for yourself, and what's right for one is certainly not necessarily the right answer for someone else.
Definitely. Another thing that I've come across is the blood sugar aspect of it. I feel, based on what I've seen, it's kind of like the number one thing to kind of regulate blood sugar. It's very good at that because there's a lot of glucose monitors, and there's kind of data around that. And I just find that fascinating because it's like in addition to like walking and exercise and all that, like cold therapy is right there with that. And it's a very good adjunctive therapy for people who need help with that, which is a lot of people. So
Yeah, that is the majority of people need it to some degree. Yes.
definitely. So in terms of your wellness practices, why is it that like cold therapy kind of stands out to you like above everything else in a sense? Like 'cause we all have our things and things that kind of help heal our journey or whatever we need. Like personally, what is it that you find most beneficial out of it?
I think it's a very good question. I think to me, the time piece really plays into it. So there are days where I would love to go for my hour walk and lift some weights and do my meditation and cold plunge, and it's just not going to happen. And cold therapy has allowed me to be able to really embrace that and totally accept it, that on some days, these couple of minutes in the beginning of the day are what I have. And it's also enough. It's not that I don't need or want more, like that is enough for this day. And so I have never found another practice where I felt that content with that being the case. And that I really feel like I get a whole body experience from that. It's a moment in my day where I come back to myself, I listen to my intuition, I am right in the present moment. And so it has flavors of all the things I love, but in like a teeny tiny microdose. And I really, really genuinely believe that at the end of the day, regulating our nervous system is the key to everything. It just is. When we have a regulated nervous system, we show up as our best selves. We are able to do incredible things. And when we have that stress holding us back, whatever that stress is on our body, everything is just more difficult. So if I can balance out my nervous system and really recalibrate myself each morning, then there's nothing better.
Yeah, because when we deal with stress, like we have to understand that it is our nervous system dealing with it. Like we try to do things mentally so much, but that can work because as humans we are so resilient. But actually, we actually train for these things.
Yeah.
It's it just makes it that much easier
Yep. It's so true.
because we have like a lot of things in our modern world, and the more we train to like kind of live our lives in a sense, because if we don't want to be average, but if we actually want to live up to our full potential, there are certain things we have to do. Like there's certain practices we have to hold certain wattage, right? Like for success. And I find that the more we engage in these things, like we kind of train for life in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're just so much more fulfilled
Yes.
because you actually can not only handle what is going on, but you can actually strive for your goals and achieve what you actually want.
Yes, exactly. And you can do it with so much more ease because you're not having to carry around all of this stress from years or months or whatever it is. You know, you're not carrying around all of that. You're really showing up as a fresh new version of yourself each day, which is really a gift.
Absolutely is because we tend to carry around these things that like are not serving us. But
Yeah.
as you talked about like a few times, we just kind of we're able to take that stress and kind of release it in a sense very easily, very quickly, and we're talking about the stress that we don't want, right? Because this is a type
Yeah.
of stress that actually makes us more resilient. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there is because there's difference between like the stress that we want and stress that we don't want. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's good stress and bad stress, right? Like, stress is a reality. It is definitely just a part of life. And since it is, like, let's just accept that it's going to be present, but how we interact with it, how we hold on to it, how we process it is all up to us to really determine. So, I mean, there's so many ways that you can flush the stress out of your system, but at the end of the day, I've never found anything in all my many practices that does it as quickly and efficiently as cold plunging does.
Absolutely. I find that I was actually like a part of a challenge a while back, like a cold therapy challenge, and doing it with other people. In a sense, like if you're just getting started, I find that super helpful because
Yeah.
like it is like a valuable practice. But the question is, are you doing it at the end of
Sure.
the day? Like because we can have like all this knowledge and all these things, but if you're not doing it, you're not going to get the benefits.
Yep.
So
Yep, exactly. And having that accountability and that sense of community around it, you know, like anything else, when we're able to reflect back to others how we're feeling different and what's changing, like that creates momentum in itself. So I would imagine, like without knowing that if there's a ton of science behind that, I would imagine doing that in a community setting amongst other people that are also like-minded is really going to up-level everybody in that situation.
right. I was learning recently, like, is there a difference between men and women when it comes to doing this? Is there I don't know, is there different parameters that should be taken into consideration?
It's a good question, and it's certainly one that's been coming up more often. There has been a conversation lately in the wellness community, sparked by a couple of doctors that are saying that women are made more for hot circumstances. So think saunas and, you know, things like that, as opposed to cold. They're saying that it's too hard on women's bodies. And I'll be honest, I listened to the conversation and then was like, oh man, like, have I been doing it wrong this whole time? Like, okay. So then I set out on my own little experiment. So I thought, okay, well, if they're saying if women have a harder time at the lower temperatures, what does that look like if I increase it by like 10 degrees, something like that? And I can tell you it wasn't for me. So my body is totally responsive to the lower temperatures. I do like mid 40s. So I certainly don't have like the picture of ice floating around me and stuff. And I don't feel like I need to. I get what I need at that temperature and feel good about it. But I think it just plays right back to the narrative of there's no right way to do this. There's no right way and really no wrong way to do it. And there's no one size fits all. So everybody wants to have like, tell me exactly what to do and we'll do that. And that doesn't exist. Like you have to make it for yourself. And so I personally don't agree with that recommendation, but that it's like everybody's body is their own. And, there might be seasons where maybe you lean more hot and want that detox that you get from the sweating more. And maybe other seasons you really lean to the cold, and just giving yourself really permission to just explore what that looks like is the most important part to me.
Yeah, this is a great tenet overall, just in wellness, because we have all these things that are kind of general measurements of things
Yeah.
that should be done and shouldn't be done. But ultimately, if you put these things into practice yourself and listen to your body, that's the number one way to do it.
Yep.
Because there's always going to be these general things, but ultimately we have our own goals, we have our own state of health, and things that we can handle and things we can't. And just putting the things in practice ourselves is most important.
Exactly. And like ditching the perfection around it too. I think sometimes people assume, oh, if I'm going to start this and make it a habit, I have to do it every single day. I have to do it, 7 days a week or whatever it is. And again, like I'm kind of here to debunk that myth, because I don't do it every single day. When I do, I actually find that it goes over the border and is a little too much stress for my body. So for me, more of that 4 to 5 times a week is the perfect sweet spot. I'm able to get the benefits, but my body isn't put into that same state every single day, and there's benefit in that.
Definitely, because when we have to adapt to our current circumstances as well. Like something
Yep.
that may work for us right now, it may not necessarily work the same way in the future based on what we're doing. So we
Yep.
have to adjust it. It doesn't mean stop doing it. It just means like we have to change the way that we're doing it so we can still maintain those benefits in our current lifestyle.
Exactly. And I'll add one thing too, I just popped in my head, was one way that I really like to look at it. It was from another leading expert in the cold therapy world. And she said, instead of thinking of it as I'll do it every single day of the week or whatever that cadence is, it looked at, reframe it and be like, I'm going to immerse myself in cold water 11 minutes a week. So you can then play around with, do I want to do 2 5.5 minute sessions? Do I want to be in there, every day for micro times? How do you want to structure that? But if you look at it more of like an end goal of time, then you can back into it and make that your own within there. So I kind of like that as a general guideline.
I like that mental reframing, because we can
Yep.
we can almost stress ourselves into not doing things, right?
Completely.
So
Yeah.
just the way just doing it, things in small steps. It doesn't have to be like this big practice that we talked about as we first start. But if we just like take the first step and then go from there.
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, that just goes for a lot of things. It's like we kind of stop ourselves from doing things, and it just get started. And
Yeah. Just
usually
take a
it's
baby
not
step.
usually
One little
that.
baby step will definitely like start the ball rolling. So don't discount just putting your hands in cold water or a cold shower for 20 seconds. It's meaningful. It is heading you in a different direction.
Yeah, the fear that usually comes up, it's just usually not as bad as we think it is.
Yeah.
And the other side is actually what we actually want. So we just gotta learn how to understand that and just be curious in a sense.
Yep.
Like be
Exactly.
willing to try things and just move forward so we can see our goals come to reality in a sense.
Yep. I agree. I agree.
Definitely. So when it comes to cold thermogenesis, are there things that would be work in synergy with it? Like, is there? Because I know there's hot cold contrast. Is there certain things like that you would recommend?
Yeah, certainly the hot and cold contrast is amazing. So that would look like going into a sauna for, say, 20 minutes, doing a quick cold plunge, and then repeating it. So in an ideal world, you can do that for about 45 minutes total. But I will say from that perspective, that's a lot on your system, right? Like that is definitely a test of your resilience in that case. And so I do think from that, if you can do that once a week, that's amazing. Certainly doesn't need to be a daily practice, but there's a lot of good to be had from that. So the hot will really help you detox your body, and then your cold plunge helps you reset your nervous system. So you're really like doing those two things to complement one another.
Right. I mean, to my understanding, most of the research on saunas, for example, like they're usually done in a hot cold contrast setting.
Yep.
So they're
Hmm.
usually measuring the cold along with it. So, I mean, personally, I feel like doing it after like a workout or perhaps like after a sauna, I think that makes it not only easier to do, but it kind of synergizes the benefits too.
And surprisingly, the science does show that plunging before you work out is actually, you get the most benefits from that.
Really?
And yeah, so the reason is that your body is naturally warming up and like doing that repair process, if you will, over your workout. And so I've tested that just because I'm always curious. And it is a fun experiment to do, to plunge and then go do your strength or your biking or whatever you're going to do. I tried it with push-ups, which I personally don't love, and I was astounded. I could do them way faster and easier than I can normally do them. So it's a fun experiment to do and just see. But it really is, if you have the ability to plunge before, it'll give your body that ability to warm up naturally. If you do it after the workout, the science shows that where those micro tears are in your muscles, you're kind of fast forwarding that process. And so you kind of lose some of those benefits.
Well, that makes sense. Like, there's kind of a concept like blunting the hormetic response to exercise. Um,
Yeah.
to my understanding, like a quick cold shower, quick cold plunge, uh, doesn't really do that. Am I right? Am I right on that?
Well, I think it I think you could run the risk of doing that if you did, like if you did a big heavy workout and then you cold plunged, you wouldn't really want to do that. If you were doing something like kind of lightweight, things like that, you're probably fine to do it. But in general, if you're able to avoid it, it's best to go before.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I can definitely see how like it's almost like a warm up, but I don't want to say that because you're getting the cold, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of it
exactly.
activates the nervous system, kind of gets
Yep.
you ready to go. I
Yep.
definitely can see that.
Yep, exactly.
Are you aware of like any supplements or certain nutrient compounds that would enhance the effects of this?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know any. I play around with supplements, but not directly related to cold plunging. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, yeah, because I know if like sauna is like taking pepper or certain things that kind of make you sweat more, like what is it
Sure.
called? Niacin. Yeah, niacin, I believe it is. Kind of gives you that flush, the
Yeah.
niacin flush.
Yeah.
Things like that for like the sauna.
That's a great question. I don't know if you have certain ones to pair it, and do you do them before or after? That would be a great thing to look into. I don't know the answer.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe I've heard of something like that. I haven't looked too deep into it, but
Yeah, great question.
pretty interesting, yeah. Because I'm always looking to like, how can we stack things? How can we
100%. Yes.
Yeah, because cause we're already doing the thing, and how can we just make that thing a little bit better, right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, in the wellness space, I feel like it's a lot easier to get somebody to do something that they're already doing, but change the way that they're doing it
Exactly.
instead of like taking out a whole another thing, right? Like,
Completely. Yep.
because we're like with cold showers, like you're doing that, just change it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, the only one I was thinking of is again like reinforcing your circadian rhythm of if you can plunge outside and get the morning light in your eyes and on your face, right? Like that's helpful at the same time. But yeah, the supplement question is good.
yeah, because I find like in my own wellness, like everything works together in synergy. Like you're gonna be good if you got your nutrition, you got all these cool things, but like the more that you have, it amplifies each other.
It does.
That's what I find.
Yeah, I
You know?
completely agree.
Yeah. So a few more things with the cold therapy is how does it exactly help us? I guess come into ourselves, like because we have a lot of things going on, but I find that being in the cold water, um, along with meditation, it really like helps you kind of get a sense of purpose because you're not so distracted by things. Like I just find that you become more fulfilled and more on purpose.
Yeah, I I agree, and I think that's why I liken the two of them. I think number one, you're coming into the present moment, which is hard to do in today's society. And then at the root of it, you are listening to your intuition in that moment, whether that's your intuition or just like, your higher self or whoever you're kind of like connecting with in that space. I think of in the cold water, when you do listen to your body's needs and what you're really needing in that moment and honoring that, that's where it changes, because so many times we can't even hear that intuition in the busy day, but in that quiet you can. And when you get a practice of hearing it and responding accordingly, like, it sounds so minor, but it's not. Like, if you have that experience and now you watch that play out in all other areas of your life, there's no other way to up level to the next version of yourself.
Definitely. I mean, another thing that kind of are coming through, I guess, people's practices is cryotherapy. Is do you find a difference between that and just the conventional cold therapy that we do?
Yeah, I've looked at it a lot because, I feel like the cryo units kind of came about in the wellness space a little before like plunging became more mainstream. But that is definitely a tax on the system. So I'll just speak maybe to my own experience in that I really, number one, did not enjoy the experience itself. Like, I felt like it was a very uncomfortable dynamic on all levels. So for me, I just really didn't like that. And the physical pain on my skin of that was just like not something I wanted to go back to. So I think there's certainly a time and place for it, and some people resonate with it more than others, and that's great. Super. If that's your thing, go for it. But for something to be a sustainable practice that really becomes a part of your lifestyle, we're not at a day and time where we're going to have cryo units in our homes doing that on a normal basis. So, I will always lean towards something that I can make convenient and accessible to myself. And so for me, cold plunging wins out on that for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I've looked at it. It's there's a certain benefit that you get from cold plunging that you're not going to see from cryotherapy, because there's something called the hydrostatic pressure of the water, right? It's like because air is a lot different feeling than water.
Yes.
And just because in water it's flowing, it's moving, and it's just a different experience than the cold air. I mean, I think it's great. It has benefits, but I feel the ancestral thing, like the cold plunges and that's actually tends to be more beneficial. I see in data as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I think too, we've spoken about it so many times, just kind of that present moment, being with yourself in that space. I find that really difficult in a cryo setting, because you've got somebody there who's either trying to distract you from the discomfort or like work you through that. And there is a sense of like, I need to do this for this amount of time too. So those elements of it, I think for me, are just the things that kind of turn me away.
That's a good point, because, like, depending on the day, you may not be able to do a full cold plunge. Like, maybe you have to do less time, just based on what you're feeling, just like in the gym, right? Like, I feel like it's a concept in general is just to give 100% of what you have every day. And your best, like, you may not be on point every single day. Like, certain things happen. But the key is to do what you can in that moment. And some days are going to be better than others, and that's okay. And it's just being adaptable is the key.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You need that flexibility. We need to have that built in, because there is no 2 days are exactly the same. So, just nice to have that.
Yeah, because having that set setting, I can kind of relate to that in a sense, because we have certain things, like maybe in a coaching setting, like in sports, like you have to do this like in a certain way, but we have to go through it, but it may not be the healthiest thing for us. Like, so if we can optimize it and set the conditions in our favor, I think that's something that we should do.
Yeah. And I think too, like when I think about the physical sensations of water versus the really cold air too, I think the air can be a little confusing, because it is really uncomfortable. So how much discomfort is the right amount too? I think, maybe I didn't do it enough times to kind of get a feeling for that, but that also is a little tougher to have that really strong knowing for yourself of like, okay, do I need to push back on this person who's saying that I need to stay in for 30 more seconds, or is this actually the time I need to get out? So it can be complicated.
Yeah, definitely, because it can be a balance. Because ultimately, distinguishing between courage and fear, in a sense, like because you have to develop that relationship with yourself and know when is the right time to keep pushing, and when is the time to actually just
Yep.
relax and just like give yourself a rest.
Yeah.
And all these things kind of play into that, just learning how to do things. Because speaking for myself, like it's a process, and you're going to learn every single time. Sometimes you may overdo it, and just don't beat yourself up. Just keep
Yeah.
going. It is a
Exactly.
process, and you will learn and get better over time.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, because I just remember being frustrated in certain aspects, not of cold, but like I don't know, just maybe some days I would over push myself in certain things, and just being able to come back to balance, you become better at that over time. And certain things like cold therapy help you learn that. So
Yeah.
just like I feel like while you're doing the cold plunge, like putting your mind on certain things you want to accomplish or maybe work on,
Yes.
I feel like it helps almost like entrain the nervous system in that thing.
I agree completely. I so often tell people that like, there's such a big resistance to wanting to try the cold, or not wanting to try the cold, I should say. So it's almost like there's this big wall in front of them, and it's like, well, what is on the other side of that? Like if you could wave a magic wand and all of the most incredible things would come true, what are those for you? Because those are like, what's for you is different from me. And if you can hold on to that piece, I really think that that comes with you into the water. Like you go in there and you are in the present moment and you're focused on those things that are important and so exciting to you. And in a sense, it's no different than meditation. Like you're calibrating your energy to that instead of just the resistance. So sometimes that too is just like a reframe that can help people think that, okay, well, maybe I can do this and maybe I can start moving towards these things that would be like, I couldn't even imagine this happening.
Definitely. One other thing I want to touch up on uh, is there a so when it comes to cold therapy, there can be used for recovery, right? And is there a certain way we should do that depending on the exercise or depending on the length? Should that vary on the situation within the exercise?
Not necessarily. I think it really just comes down to what your body needs, and playing around and figuring out, okay, like if I've done strength this day and I plunge the next day, my muscle soreness is probably going to be less. So that's probably helpful. So maybe that's just a foundational element of thinking about what exercises do I do that my body definitely reminds me I did the next day. And cold plunging can definitely help ease the discomfort of soreness and things like that. But in general, I mean, it's going to help you either way.
Definitely. I mean, I feel we talked about a lot like the resilience factors and how there's synergy there. Uh, I want to talk about how or something I noticed is how it kind of works in synergy with other things like meditation and
Mhm.
journaling to make us more effective at that. So I just find that really effective too.
Yeah.
Um, do you
Yeah,
want
it's
to say
coming
anything
back
on
to
that?
yourself, really,
Yeah,
It's just coming back to that and seeing where you are and casting out where you want to be.
definitely. So, and we talked about so many things in this interview. We talked about your story, which is excellent. We talked about the benefits, um, different modalities, and how we can definitely become more resilient. I think that's been a theme, like being more resilient within ourselves.
Hmm.
And there's not many things that can come close to cold therapy. And the data and my experience as well seems to
Yeah.
be yours as well.
Hmm.
So I really enjoyed this. Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I mean, if anybody is just curious to learn more about ChillPod or my journey, I share both. And so you can definitely come follow along with me on Instagram at Kris Rice Wellness, or the chillpod.co is all things ChillPod. So I would love to continue the conversation because I think we've had a great one here, and I always welcome that just continuing on.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be really beneficial. I know people can get a lot of value out of this. And like you said, just continuing the conversation, not only in cold therapy, but just wellness overall, because the more great conversations that we have, like the more people are going to educate it and just become healthier as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having this conversation. It's been great.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights with us. Really enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you.
All right.